Hey, everybody. Welcome to Odd and Untold, the podcast where we talk about all things strange and spooky. And this week, I have a really cool guest that I'm going to be speaking to. He's a fellow Brooklynite. He served in the U.S. Coast Guard. He served our city with the FDNY, New York's bravest. He's been interviewed by the New York Post. He was on the Discovery Channel program Close Encounters Down Under, which was a six-part miniseries about UFOs and UAPs. He's a psychic who says he can speak to the aliens and the UFOs, and he's got a lot of cool stories. And a lot of this stuff is really unknown to me because I haven't really been following the UFO stuff lately. His name is Andrew Radziewicz, and Andrew, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always great to connect with a fellow Brooklynite.
Yeah.
I'm currently, for people listening, I'm currently in Melbourne, Australia. I moved here about 5 years ago. When I first moved here, I was working as a mortician in a funeral home, and that was very interesting too. That ties in with all this stuff. So, through the things you talked about, and then coming here, the one thing that's been constant through my life is the contact with the UFOs, with the lights in the sky. It doesn't matter where I go, what part of the world, country, town. When I go outside and meditate, or I'm just outside hanging, these lights just come and they follow me around. And I was glad to get them professionally analyzed and put them in that TV series you talked about, because that's the big question from everyone. How do you know this is real? How do you know it's not swamp gas? Blah, 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 blah. So I say, you know what? Don't ask me. Leave it to the professionals who do that, who work for MUFON. That's not me. I just am a dude with a story. And, I've seen some interesting things over the time.
Yeah, definitely. And I do want to start just real quick because I know you had an experience while you were in the Coast Guard, and
Yeah.
we've been hearing a lot of these stories come out in the news lately, like the Nimitz and the Tic Tac UFOs that the pilots have been filming. So a lot of like military stuff is coming out. And I know in '99 you had a sighting while in the Coast Guard, correct?
Yeah, so in the late 90s, I was in the U.S. Coast Guard station in St. Petersburg, Florida. And at the time, I was just a 19-year-old kid. I was not into this, like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like
Hmm.
UFO hunting or not at all. And sometimes that's the best way to get introduced to this, because it's raw, it's organic, it's unexpected. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you go look for things or you have an expectation, it's not what you think, or you get disappointed, or it doesn't happen right away. And then a lot of people don't bother looking anymore. They're like,
Hmm.
oh, that stuff doesn't work. It's nonsense. Well, that wasn't what I was doing. I was just working. I had my job. I'm the lone night watchman on a boat on the Coast Guard Cutter Durable down in St. Pete, Florida. And I'm on top of the boat, scanning the boat every 10 minutes with big old school binoculars and then night vision goggles. And then if I see anything moving, I just call down to the officers on duty and the radar men, and they basically look to see if they could pair up to what I'm seeing in the sky. Well, I saw these two round silver objects moving. And if you're on top of the boat, just say you're looking straight out. If you look straight out and just to the left and up, right? So I'm just looking there with my binoculars. I see these objects. Then with the night vision, I'm still seeing them, and I'm thinking it's just a satellite or it's something explainable. I'm not thinking anything else. Like I said, I'm like, there's got to be explainable, something that we could rationalize here. So I call down to the bridge. The officer comes up, he takes a look, and now the officer had never come up before. So my prior experience being out there, nothing had ever happened that warranted the officer coming up there. This was after midnight, so I was doing the midnight to 4 a.m. shift. So the officer comes up, he's looking, and he's like, "Oh, you see that?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." Next thing I know, there's like 20 sailors up there, from guys that I work with to officers to the captain. So if you're waking up the captain of the boat out at sea on patrol at 2 a.m., it better be something really important.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
but I'm not thinking alien, not at all. I'm just thinking military exercise. Maybe it's Cuba, maybe it's another military, you know what I mean? Something. But the radar guy said that he had nothing detected. So that's odd. That's odd. And we're all seeing these objects. They're moving. We're looking for about 10, 15 minutes. It's hard to tell the time because I wasn't saying, hey, start, stop. It was just we're all looking. And I know
Mhm.
I had plenty of witnesses. We all see these objects, and then they move together. The two objects come together. And when they merge as one, and they don't take off in any direction. They just vanish. So I'm like, what the heck? That was just wild. I saw this with my own eyes. I'm like, and I'm looking at the guys around me, and they're like, oh my God, you see that? Now I'm thinking this is a big deal. Like, whoa, what is this? What's going on? We're going to have this big debriefing the next morning. And the next morning, nothing was said. I talked to my coworkers, and they were just like, hey, bro, you're going to see things out at sea. There's a lot of weird things, unless it's a direct threat or something engages with us or comes at us. We can't chase up every loose end. We're going to call the military. Basically, when anything passes the front or the back of your boat, they have to get on a radio. There's a common channel. I think it was channel 10 back then, the emergency channel. That's just what it was then. You get on and identify yourself, because we need to make sure, once again, there's no threat. There's no migrants. There's no drug interdiction. We patrolled the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean, a very active area with drugs, migrants, literally pirates. There were pirates out there. Okay,
Wow.
this is 1989. This is different. People can't even imagine. Back in the 90s, there were actual pirates that were out there, and they do
Wow.
not like you. Like
Right.
I heard stories and things, and oh yeah, crazy stuff went on. So we were always, on guard and vigilant and all that stuff. And the next morning, no one said anything. I wasn't debriefed, but I also was never told, don't talk about this. So that's why now I didn't talk about this for years, but later on,
Hmm.
that was in 99. In 2001, there was a guy that went to Washington, D.C. named Dr. Stephen Greer. He was at the National Press Club, and he claimed that he had all these ex-military guys who were involved with covering up the phenomena when they were in the military. So I was like, I got to meet these guys, because maybe they could explain, you know what I mean? Like that was just always something interesting to me. It piqued my interest. So in 2011, I flew out to the desert in California and met Dr. Greer and ex-military guys. And that's when this thing really started to take off for me.
Okay. So just because I know people are going to ask, and just for us lay people, um, on a Coast Guard vessel, the radar, how small of an object can it pick up in the sky, say?
Yeah, so a normal satellite or anything that size, anything that looks small would pick up, but this thing was massive. So yeah, it looked, from a distance, it looked round like a basketball.
Hmm.
But if it was close to us, the thing was gigantic. I mean, it might have been a city block. I can't tell you exactly, because they had trouble detecting it. You know what I
Right,
mean? So
right.
they couldn't exactly or I'll say this, they didn't tell me, and nobody reported to me what really went on, because they might. I've heard of programs and systems out there that detect these things. And I've heard that they've been around since the 50s, because after looking into this. But from what the guys told me and people I was with, we couldn't exactly detect the size. But yeah, it would pick up anything like something that was there. They were like, oh, based on the size and how big it is, and we could see it. Like you could see with your naked eye. So it wasn't like it was only with the night vision and
Hmm.
really like a little speck. You know what I mean? It
Right,
wasn't
right.
just like dust or something. No, this was something solid from what we could tell at least. And I'm also trusting the people I work with who had like 20 plus years out at sea. You know what I mean? Like I was a newbie. I don't know what's going on, but these guys were like, oh yeah, yeah, I've seen things that would blow your mind, like just, once again, unless it's a direct threat, we don't make a big deal out of it.
Yeah, and it's just a creepy little sort of thing that they said to you, very, very sort of cryptic, of like, you're going to see weird things out here. Just as long as they're not a threat,
Yeah.
ignore them. And that to me is just weird that, like, you have a military organization basically saying, yeah, you're going to see weird stuff, just ignore it. It's not a threat. Like that to me is just very cryptic and really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So when you go to basic training, they don't tell you about any of that. It's
Right.
just, you go, shut up, do this, blah, 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 blah. At least in the 90s, it probably is totally different now. But back then it was just keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything. If you see something, report it. You know what I mean? Always be vigilant. However, I know like the Air Force, they actually have manuals on how to deal with that stuff, but we
Right.
didn't, because I guess unless you're getting face to face with it. However, a lot of those guys that I served with, some of them are retiring. A guy just retired recently and contacted me and said, hey, I want to talk. And I was like, oh my God, I'd love to, because everyone said, where are the witnesses? I said, I'm not telling anyone's name. If you look up online and you could track down who was on the boat and the commander was, you'll find out. But I'm not going to give up that name, because the guy, I don't know, he's probably retired now. But the guys I worked with, a lot of them are still in. So I don't want to say any names. But if they retire
Right.
and they want to share their story, which now with this UFO narrative everywhere, everyone's got a story. And guys have contacted me who said, I was on the boat with you. I was there. But even after that, years later, I had a ton of contact out at sea in the Coast Guard. I'm like, dude, people need to talk about that, because when I share this, people are like, yeah, right. Like, okay, that's a cool story. I'm like, I didn't talk about when it first happened. I only talked about this, a couple of years ago.
Right. Right.
Because why? I didn't want any sort of connection with guys that was still in and bringing, you know what I mean, out of respect. But we're talking, 25 years ago, like like I said, guys are retiring now. So what, like, whatever. And I never signed an NDA. So yeah, I could talk about that.
Yeah, and there was never the, because you hear a lot of that in these stories with the threats, and like especially like with Roswell and some of these other stories, just the trope of, if you talk about this, they're going to be digging your bones up out of the desert, or they're like, we're going to come after you and your family and your family's family, and
Yeah.
and there doesn't seem to be that so much anymore, because again, you're having a lot more disclosure these days. You have the videos, you have just more and more, just everything in the paranormal quote unquote realm, just to lump everything in together, whether it's Bigfoot, whether it's ghosts, whether it's UFOs, uh, there just seems to be much more acceptance now and transparency. And it's not like it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, where if you had a sighting, people called you, nuts, or you were drinking, or you were on drugs, or you're mentally ill. Now people want to hear the stories, and hence like our podcasts, that we do. And the stories that we tell, because people do accept it now much more. So yeah.
Yeah. It is wild because I know even some of these pilots or fighter pilots supposedly took like pictures with their iPhone in a cockpit. Like when I
Yeah.
was in, no way you could do that. Take a selfie or a picture of any, like, no, no, no. That would not went over well. If you took a picture of something, especially classified, you go to the break, man. There's no you going on Channel 7. You're gone. No one's going to hear that story. So with these stories and the stuff you're hearing now, I always say to people, once again, this is controlled disclosure. They were given approval to share this. So once again, what's really behind this? And the message from all these guys, basically sum it all up, is the same thing. We don't know what they are. There's a threat. They could have superior technology, but they're not actually talking about the technology. The secret is, if they revealed, one, that they're no threat, because they're not. Two, the tech. How are they getting here? No oil, no diesel fuel. They are using free energy. Whoa, that could solve a lot of the world's problems and, take money away from the big oil companies. That's why they'll never, ever, ever get to the root and what really is going on, because that could solve every. I mean, imagine we just had free energy. We don't have to pay for any. We shouldn't have to pay for it, but we could live off of planet Earth, reproducing this
Hmm.
energy. Even Tesla, that's all a scam, man. It goes back to a grid. Come on, man. We're talking about real Tesla, the real Tesla technology. That's how these things, my understanding over the years, how they're getting here. That's the thing of what they'll never reveal. So all this stuff on TV with these pilots and stuff, it's not going to get anywhere. They're going to just keep us in that, like in these waters that are muddied. And people like you and I, and people that you interview, people that are on the ground seeing this stuff, that's the stories I want to hear, because that's raw, that's organic, that's from the heart. Once again, there's no agenda. I'm just sharing what I experience, even from day one. I'm like, I don't know what this is. I want to know what it is, but it's beautiful. Like whatever this is peaceful, and it's brought me together with people, and I have things I can't explain, and it kind of puts things together when I experience it. Wow, there's something greater out there than just this rat race of what we're in every day.
Right, right. And maybe I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but you mentioned the reasoning for maybe some of the disclosure now. Why do you think even the government is being a little bit more, I don't want to say transparent, because they're not, but they're not digging their boots in, their heels in, like they used to. They used to just be like, nope, it's nothing. It's a weather balloon. It's swamp gas. There's nothing to it. And now they're kind of like, yeah, there's something. We just don't know what it is. They're not,
Well,
So what do you
yeah.
think is really going on?
So 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I kept getting visions. I kept seeing, because why did I get these, right? I saw the lights, I had this contact experience. And then after that, there were moments in life where I'd see objects or see things, have interactions, especially once I learned how to do this in 2011, when I learned, oh, I can meditate, and then these will come because they are tied into our consciousness. Once again, all points and time and space are connected. Everything, thought, everything, time, it's all connected. How do we know for sure? Go outside, meditate with your mind, project into the space, the cosmos, project out there where you are. So show where you are, and try to contact something and say, hey, if something is paying attention to my thought and you can see where I am, show me. This is what I do. And when I do that, boom, these lights respond to my thought. I don't even speak it. I've been doing this for years. So people like me, there's millions of people doing this now. So the government is aware that these, they call star seeds or whatever you want to call, we're all star seeds. We all come from something. It's just finally people wake up to that reality one day. It can happen through NDE, OBE, seeing UFOs, almost dying, but people eventually get to a point where they want to know more about their origins and all these things. This is what I'm noticing. And we're at a point now that's crucial. So they're coming down with the government. I think this is their last straw to take control of this narrative because they've already lost it.
Hmm.
Because the regular people, us, the people in society, we have come forward with no agenda with that except the truth and world peace. If we want to live in the cosmos in world peace, we have to be accountable and we have to be honest and we have to be truthful. That's not going to come from the government. But I honestly believe if the people lead, then the leaders will be forced to follow us. So we just have to keep doing this because eventually, because why? I've seen the shift happening and I've seen the change happening, but they're at their last straw right now to hold on, but they're losing control. How do I know that too? Because I'm having people from that other side contact me and they're like freaking out that people are like finally realizing, whoa, we're not alone. There's no threat. And this threat narrative, it just doesn't add up, right? Think about this. If they're out there and there's aliens out there and they want to wipe us out or there's a threat, why would they wait till right now when we have weapons of mass destruction to go to war with us? Wouldn't they have done that 100 years ago? That doesn't make any sense, right? That doesn't. Why would they wait till now to have this doomsday, this rapture event? Come on, man. That's a bunch of nonsense. No, they've evolved past the point of harming each other. Because if they hadn't, if they're 100 more years advance or even, 50 more years advance, eventually you have to evolve where you don't harm each other and you live in peace. Because if you don't, you go into nuclear war, some sort of catastrophe, and you wipe each other out. This is communication that I've had with the extraterrestrials over the years. They've explained to me that other species out there have gone through those negative types of timelines where they've wiped each other out. Okay. And they've learned, hey, that's not the way to live. However, other ones have not gone to the point of destruction. Okay. And they've evolved and they've lived and they are distant and they're keeping an eye on us as children, but they're very worried about us. And I don't think the government is in contact with them because once again, why would you go to someone that represents a threat if you live in peace? You have to resonate with people that are at your same vibration, people you could make sense with, people you could talk to. You wouldn't compare apples to oranges, you know what I mean? You go with somebody that, whoa, this person understands what I'm trying to say. So they communicate, the extraterrestrials will communicate with every regular day people because the regular person, most people you could talk about this with and they're like, yeah, that makes sense. But when there's a defense or a threat narrative, which is what they're pushing, they say, we don't know what this is. We have no idea. No, no, no. These Nimitz incidents and these government military incidents, I think they're all Lockheed Skunk Works projects. I don't think they're the real thing at all.
Oh, really?
At all. Not at all.
Okay.
Because once again, it's so perfectly being rolled out. Like it's so, you know what I mean? It's too perfect. And when you experience the real thing, if you experience it, anyone I've met, you're there and you have it, you usually have some sort of download or some sort of whoa realization. You know what I mean? Not this government rolled out. They don't talk about that side of it, the spiritual side. That's why the people, that's why I want to hear, hey, what's happening when you're interacting? They're not even going into that. And even in the media, they're missing the whole point of this. They're just pushing this fear narrative. Oh, they might destroy us and because we can't defend ourselves. I don't know. And Dr. Greer too, he said, no, that's all, those are all classified projects. That's all it is.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because a lot of people bring that up. And I think it's just we've been, sort of brainwashed by Hollywood that aliens are going to come, they're going to destroy all our landmarks, and then we're going to fight back, the plucky humans. But like you said, like, why wouldn't they have just, if we've been seeing them for hundreds, if not many hundreds of years, why didn't they wipe us out then? Or even still, like you'd think like any species that could get here from another planet would be so far advanced that even nuclear weapons probably wouldn't deter them much. And they wouldn't just be showing themselves and they're here. Why not just destroy us? If that's their intention, it would have happened a long time ago and none of us would be here to talk about it. They would come, they'd wipe us out and they'd take what they needed and move on. It wouldn't be this long drawn out 50 years, 75 years, 100 years of more and more and more people saying that they've seen things and stories coming out and disclosure and all of this. It just would have happened. So yeah, I don't really buy that either.
No, there are people, not myself, but there are people in the government that are very religious, very Christian fundamental, very, very religious. And years ago, there was Nick Redfern wrote a great book about this called The Collins Elite.
Hmm.
There was a group called The Collins Elite, and people in the government that I met too told me about this. Be careful when you remote view them. Be careful when you communicate with them. Why? Because the Collins Elite were all Christians, and they basically were remote viewing Mars and other planets and whatever, and the extraterrestrials became, or whatever they were contacting, supposedly became aware that they were being remote viewed, and they didn't like that.
Oh.
Okay, so once again, what's the intent behind it? If I remote view or I make contact, I'm not looking to take your technology and weaponize it. I'm not personally. I would just be fascinated, something is around. But if a government group paid to do this, if they're looking for research and technology. So supposedly the whole group, they remote viewed them, they saw them, and then supposedly all the scientists died
Wow.
mysteriously under weird circumstances. Supposedly. But I had government insiders saying, yeah, this is real, watch out. And yeah. I said, well, that's not my experience. It's not what I've experienced. So they think that basically these aliens or some of the aliens that they made contact with were describing that biblical events were real and that basically we were heading towards the rapture and this great events coming. I've heard September 2026. I've heard that forever stop. It's just, once again, driving the fear. We're all still going to be here. That's not going to happen because once a date's announced, now you can change. So people always come to me as a psychic. Hey, predict my future. Tell me what's going to happen. I said, your free will. I can tell you most likely if you keep going in this direction, this is the most likely outcome. But we could finish a session. You could go out and jump off the Brooklyn Bridge, and now your free will's over. So,
Right.
what's my future? Oh, you didn't see I was going to do that. No, because you have free will, meaning you could change and do what you want. But it is useful. But these people in the government are convinced, still, some of them, that the Khans elite was real. They were contacting these evil, negative things, and that the rapture's coming, and we need to prepare ourselves. Now, what is going on? There are interdimensional beings, demons. There are things that come, they'll look like the Virgin Mary and it'll turn into a bull. There are things that'll come looking like your loved one and then shapeshift. That's not alien. An alien or a real extraterrestrial. I don't even like the word alien because this could mean so many things, but an ET from another civilization, they will come in their natural form. They don't have to change. If anything shape-shifting or changing, I'd be very weary because then what does that mean? It could change again. So whatever they're telling me, I haven't experienced that nonsense, that shape-shifting and all that, but people do. And
Hmm.
people are given these crazy things of these dates that are going to happen, and they never happen. And even I've heard stories of people harming themselves and other people. And my contact, though, and things that I've seen and people I've met, no, it hasn't been something like that. But there are interdimensional beings that have the capability to somehow mask and pretend to look like aliens or people that we know. And that's where this thing gets messy. Okay. And that's where this abduction thing fits in. But the genuine ET, once again, 100 years more advanced. Why would they come back to poke and prod people? Dr. Greer said to me, he goes, Andrew, with abductions, he goes, they don't need to take you and torture you. He goes, if they wanted your DNA, they just pick it up off the ground. It's everywhere. Like, he goes, that's so human, right? They're going to take you and torture you and get the truth out of you. That sounds so human. Once again, I could see humans doing that to each other because we do. But an alien evolve, like, once again, it's like looking at an ant trying to make sense of their life. You're just going to go about your life. You know what I
Right.
mean? But if an ant kept coming at you and crawling up you, and you might, pay a little more attention to it. But I think it's something similar. They're so concerned about the rest of the cosmos. And once we started lighting off the first A bomb, that's when they started coming back big time saying, what are you doing? What you're doing could affect the cosmos. And if we ever were going to go to nuclear war, like if the doomsday was going to come, that's the only case where there would be intervention and they would have to come to stop that. But otherwise, we have to learn from our mistakes, man. What good is it raising a child and cleaning up their mess all the time? They got to learn. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think it's the same thing here. That's just at least my experience with this, my little
Okay.
experience over my time.
All right. So can you tell us a little bit about the CE5 and how you got into
Yeah.
that and how, I mean, you may not be able to, but how it works, just
Yeah.
from a
Very
high
easy.
level?
So,
Okay.
yeah, I flew to Cali, went to the desert in California. Dr. Greer basically says, read my books. That'll give you some background, but really, it's really easy. He's got an app you can download for like 15 bucks. I would highly recommend doing that. Or you can go online if you don't want to pay. Go on YouTube. It's all for free. You can find it. But very simply put, it's in an app ready done. You go there, you sit outside in a quiet space, preferably with no pollution, no light traffic. Just because you don't want to say, oh, that could be a plane. Oh, it could be, no, try to go in the middle of nowhere. But when I lived in Coney Island, Brighton Beach, a little different story. We'll get into that.
Yeah, yeah.
So preferably though, in the middle of nowhere, I started doing this in the desert in California with no one around. We meditate with a group of like 20, 30 people. And basically with your mind, you want to project out to the cosmos where you are. So, all right, right now currently in Melbourne, Australia. I would send that out into space and say, okay, if there's an extraterrestrial civilization out there, and of course, if you want to say, you're peaceful, you're loving, you have the same intent as me, show me where you are. Now, how do you get that validation back? You might get some download. You might be getting something. Wow, I feel something. What I do is I say, okay, show me with a light. So show me something odd, unique, different that validates that we have a connection right now and you're hearing what I'm putting out there. And then, boom, you start to see lights in the sky or even on the ground. And then eventually, they don't just come, the being in physical form right away. Like I've never met very few people that right away, first time ever, just beings show up. Because if that happens, I personally probably crap my pants. You know what I mean? First
Yeah.
time, that could be really intense. So start out with lights in the sky, then on the ground, and then eventually, yeah, as you get more comfortable, with this, and you open up and you feel comfortable, you ask for more. Say, hey, show me more. Get closer. Come. And when you're ready, yeah, you'll have a very intimate, close up and personal experience where it starts as a light in the sky to you can see a physical being. And I started doing that in Cali, came back to New York, found a group in East Nassau, New York, near Albany, and we met once a month doing CE5, Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind. That just stands for Human Initiated Contact. So we are initiating, whereas the other close encounters, sometimes people are just out and they see something by accident.
Mhm.
This is proactive. So actually asking to do this. Now, since 2011 till now, I personally have not had one negative experience. The group I'm in from Albany, New York, I don't know anyone there from the group contact that we've had over the 15 years, and they've been around longer than me with the group. I haven't heard of one bad negative abduction, nothing at all, nothing like that at all, none of that nonsense that you see on TV.
Mhm.
However, there are groups, okay, not even military, but there are sub-military groups that have gone out there and they found genuine people that were having contact and they actually have abducted people. So people that have had real experiences also have gotten taken by men in suits. They're not aliens, but they used to do programs where they used to take people and they used to dress up people that were dwarfs or really short people and wear suits and abduct people. How do I know this? Because I've met people that were in these programs that eventually they get to a realization where they know, oh my God, I did something wrong. I don't want to live with this. I don't want this on my conscience. If you look up a guy, Richard Doty, I know him personally. He was in the U.S. Air Force and the Office of Special Investigations. He has validated that this program is still active. Where they go out, he was not involved with this, but he knows that this program is active. They will go out and abduct people in the public, people that had experiences and not. So one guy went to a military base one night and snuck in and
Mhm.
saw a test weapon and, oh my God, I got it. And I saw this alien spacecraft. So the team went out that one night and they abducted the guy. And then he told everyone, oh my God, I got taken by aliens. And no. So people think because it looks so real and they have the technology to knock people out. They had this gas back then. Now, I can't even imagine what they have now, but I know back then, back in the 80s, they had the ability to come into your house, not even take you, but simulate that you think you're being taken somewhere. You don't even leave your bed, but they are able to do something to the environment and to you, give you some sort of drug or something in you that makes you think you're on a spaceship and all these things are happening. You haven't even left your house. So now what they have now, I can't even imagine. They probably don't even have to physically come anymore. They probably can send a signal to you because they do this through the media. They can
Mhm.
send signals to you and affect your frequency. This is all stuff people can look up. This is not just Andrew Rass spitting, garbage. This stuff goes on, man. There's a lot of programming and it goes this deep with this subject. That's why the government, they'll never come out and touch that. No, no way. How could you talk about that? Could you imagine the outrage.
Oh, absolutely. So that's all just to
Disgusting.
cover up uh, government technology and skunkworks
What a
projects.
shame.
That's
What a shame, right? All that to just cover, but we're at that point, like I said, where it's so many people know that it's not and means no threat by grassroots people coming forward that that narrative is changing and they're freaking out. But yeah, this CE5 thing. I went to Albany, met this group, and then wherever I lived, whether it was Long Beach, Long Island, Staten Island, and then Brighton Beach. I moved to Brighton Beach in like 2017. And right there's a lot of traffic. You know, you have JFK Airport not
oh
far,
yeah.
Jersey, you got the bridge, you got a ton of stuff. And I remember being there and I went outside. I lived at 219 Brightwater Court. Okay, if you want to look this up, 219 Brightwater Court. I lived on the third floor. My roommate still lives there.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so people can track. I'm not going to give his name, but they track him down. He has seen this with me. We have videos on Instagram. He's in them. I've tagged them. So if people want to track it down on their own, they can find him. He's still there. He could vouch. He's seen this with me. Both roommates, one moved, but the other guy did see it. And from my third floor window, I looked out and I remember at like just before sunset, I started to see these balls of light coming. And I'm like, that's interesting. And then one after the other. And I'm like, wait, they're very low to the ground. Now, back in 2017, I'm like, you can't fly drones that low in Brooklyn. I know that, no way. And it's a restricted airspace, New York City. And I remember going out, and these things were so low, no sound, no sound, a solid light. When they're far away, they look gigantic because they really illuminate. But I've seen them get within 6 inches of me, and they're the size of a fire ant. No sound. They're that little, but then when they illuminate, they look huge. Whatever they are, I can't even like give a name to it. It's an orb, it's something, it's intelligent because it's paying attention to me and to other people I brought to my apartment. And we go on the beach, and all night these things would come out. We see things in the ocean. I saw things coming out of the ocean. And yeah, I started filming them. It's probably the only guy doing it in 2017, 2018. But I was filming it on my iPhone. You know, at first I'm like, oh my God, I'm filming this, sharing it on Facebook, social media. And then the New York Post somehow found out, and then they ran an article about me. You know, FDNY firefighter claims he's a psychic medium, communicates with aliens, UFOs. Yeah, that's all true. I'm not denying any of it. I would not have personally, I did not ask to be in the newspaper. You know what I mean? I wanted to go about this a different way. I wanted to help educate people, and they weren't interested in being educated. They just wanted to run a hit piece. You know what I mean? Oh, look at this clown. He makes 100 grand because they put in there my address, what I make. Like that has nothing to do with it. You know, who cares what I make? But they wanted to say, oh, a city employee is doing this in his time off. Look at this weirdo. And the girl that wrote that article, her other articles she wrote prior to me were all hit pieces about first responders. So I'm like, why do you want to, you know what I mean? What good? Once again, what's the narrative here? I mean, it backfired on her because it ended up being a blessing, but I didn't ask. I
Mhm.
didn't ask for it to go down that way. But sometimes things just happen and you kind of got to roll with it, man. I was already in too deep, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like, all right, it's happening. But people told me, oh, go to the news, call the news, have them come there. I said, if I go to the news, if I go to Channel 7, have them come to my house, they're going to put me on the cover of the paper and I'm going to end up in a psych ward because this sounds nuts. And I'm not ready to explain consciousness to my captain at work. You know what I mean? Like, no, 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 no. I wanted to do years of research and then eventually one day, then have that talk. But once that happened, like the cat was out of the bag, man. And then everyone knew and whatever.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
And that's the problem. Like I said earlier, this you just have this, and again, it's not as bad as it used to be, but it's still there of the mainstream media. You know, they tend to run these pieces on Halloween, and I was part of that. Like as a ghost hunter years ago, it was just every Halloween the media was, you know, my phone was ringing off the hook, and then the rest of the year nobody wanted to talk to me. It was just, you know, right before Halloween, and all the pieces were like tongue in cheek, and the token Ghostbusters joke, and you know it's not serious journalism. They don't take it seriously. It's either the hit piece or the fluff piece. uh and I've always said, like, whether you believe in this stuff or not, because we all have our different beliefs and what we're interested in, what we're not interested in, you know, whether you think these things are extraterrestrial or interdimensional or whatever, like, people are seeing them, they're photographing them, they're taking videos. This is not people's imaginations. Like, I've seen some of your videos, and the one that really intrigued me is the pink light over the beach.
Yeah.
uh, because you do not see pink or purple. To me, that looked a little bit more purple just in the video, but maybe that's just my screen settings. But
Yeah.
you don't see that in the lights, especially over in New York City. I mean, you're seeing white, you see the red and green navigation lights, but you don't
No.
see purple. And me and my
No.
buddies once we saw a purple light up in the Adirondacks, and it was much
Yeah.
higher up than the video you took. And I'll try to splice the video in here just so people can see what we're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about. But you can't, as a skeptic, just say you're making this up or you're seeing things. When you have video, this is not just you trying to talk to something and there's something out there. There's something that people are seeing. It's not just a few people. It's not what the media would have us believe, drunks or rednecks or, it's pilots, it's military. There's doctors, there's lawyers, there's people from all walks of life, not the stereotype that the media would have us believe. And again, there's video, there's proof. So what is going on? Because yeah, some of the videos are hard, it's hard to see what's going on. But I watched the clip that you sent me where Mufon analyzed it, and he made some good points. And the purple light that you showed, like that's you just do not see and that was clearly purple. I mean, that's reflecting in the water. There's an object there. This is not an artifact on the lens. This is not something you can do. I mean, it was clearly like this pinkish purple light, which you do not see in normal aircraft ever.
No, and that's the thing, and same thing with the proximity, how close it is, the location, how low it is. I post that, people go, "Oh, it's a spotlight." I said, "Bro, I have a video of it moving in midair. That's on a spotlight on what, a plane? Like,
Right.
okay, then where are the plane lights? Where if you're gonna say what you're gonna say, it's always people that don't look into this or go, "Oh, it's this." You know what you're talking about. On a plane, there's navigation lights, right? You got a red, you got to do a little. It's easy. You can see. Okay, does it have that? Then that eliminates it. Done. If there's no nav on it, then it's flying without that. It's got just a pink or purple light on it. It can be shot down, okay, whatever it is, but by law, you know what I mean? So
Right.
that thing is there and it's gliding there, okay? And then, yes, sometimes you'll see a plane or a military thing come by. It'll try to chase it, get it out of there. It's not a regular navigation object, though. And this thing, once again, it is coming when I'll be in my house and I'll tell my wife or my kids, I'll go, "There's something outside, get the camera." We'll walk out, bang, it's there. Once again, it's responding exactly to where I am. I don't sit outside scanning the sky looking for, oh, what's this? No, I go out, I look in one spot, bang, right where I'm looking. Now that's what happens. Years ago, I was like a cowboy, just, trying to, hey, I realized, no. Dr. Greer said from day one, just pick one spot, look there, and focus on that, and you'll communicate. And he's dead right. That's it. Just look right there. It'll come right there when it's safe. Of course, these skies are monitored. They have drones. They have all sorts of things out there to monitor these skies. And these things have been shot down for years, whatever they are. Okay, some have been manned, some haven't. How do I know that too? There was a Coast Guard whistleblower that came forward recently with Dr. Greer about a year or two ago, who contacted me too, who said he was on a retrieval team in the Coast Guard on a tugboat, and a craft landed, and they retrieved this thing and had all this hieroglyphs and all these weird writings on it, inscribings. Let me tell you, there are thousands of people like that have seen this thing. But most people just want to work, go home, retire, collect their pension. They don't want to deal with this because this brings the circus. And the only time you can get something written, right, is the same thing with me. When they did my piece, they wanted it on, ran it on a Sunday, page 6, of course, and they wanted it on 4th of July weekend. And the fire department, I called them. They had my back. They were great. They called the post and said, "Don't run it. The guy doesn't want you to do this. Just leave him alone, man. He's not, he doesn't want any of this." And they went back and forth for a couple weeks. They ran it anyway. And I'm like, man, what heartless people. But once again, you do something, you don't know how something's going to pan out till years later sometimes. You
Yeah.
could ruin someone's life. You know what I mean? You have no idea what it can do. I've met the greatest and most amazing people now since that was out, because they're like, "Oh, that's great," and I'm like, but yeah, it didn't exactly go down the way that I wanted, man. However, now I get to tell my story the way I want. They did what they did. People are going to have what they say, but still, they didn't debunk anything. They didn't say, "Hey, we took his footage, we analyzed it, it's all fake." No, they didn't do anything. So when I was on TV, they did that. They took my footage, and like I've been saying all along, I'm telling you, this is something unidentified. I don't know what it is. It's responding to my consciousness. Imagine, they're acting like in these military videos, they're just out and these things come and they're jamming their system and they're toying with them. And yeah, if the real thing is out there, once again, why would they be toying with them? What's the point of that? Why would they be messing with them? I know during the Cold War, some of the weapons systems that they had were turned around. They were crafted in the area, and the weapon systems were turned back around, and they couldn't activate them. They couldn't do anything. And the ETs was sending a message there. Once again, by killing others, you're killing yourself. So once again, what's the message? It wasn't we're going to poke and prod you. It's what are you doing? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And we're slowly the narrative too in the government. You have some people, younger people that are in now that know the truth and they want to help get this out. And like I said, these star seeds and other people are in there changing this conversation, but we're not there yet, man. There's still a few real powerful families and people that will hold on for dear life and they won't let go. And they don't mind the talk, they don't mind the confusion, and they'll take whatever money they can get out of the subject and news coverage. But once again, the technology, that is the number one important thing. The technology, yeah, it's peaceful and all that, but they don't care. They can make money off that. The
Right.
technology, how they're getting here and all that, and they know and they're doing that already. That's the thing that they won't let out because then they would go, wait, I don't need to have like a backup generator in my house. I don't need to be hooked up to an oil grid and we don't have to pollute the environment. Oh my God, that's the truth. And when whistleblowers have come forward, these people have had their lives taken. People that have had cars running on water, and this is a serious thing. And they will do whatever at any cost. Anyone has that technology. I honestly, people say to me, what do I do? I'm like, I don't even know what to tell you. I don't even want to know about that. Honestly, I'm like, I don't even want to know because then that's a threat, man. That's a real serious thing. Someone has to take charge of that from the inside somehow to make sure those people are safe. But it seems like those people, when they come forward, something ends up happening to them, you know?
Yeah, and it's funny because you can Google it and research it, and it happens, and then people just say, it's just a conspiracy. He died a natural cause, and it's like, but how many times does it have to like how many coincidences do there need to be? It was just like
It's
with
it
Boeing. Like Boeing just had like two whistleblowers die, two, like
yeah,
within like a
yeah,
couple of weeks, and they're just like, oops, just a coincidence, and it's the general public just goes along with it because they don't want to be the tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, and they just go along with what they're being spoon fed, and like, oh no, it's just a coincidence. Oh, okay, it's
yeah.
not. It's really
They
not, and it's frightening.
they basically came out what, a year or two ago with, I know Ralph Blumenthal very well. He's a wonderful person, and they wrote that giant Times article that should have hit the pause button on humanity. Like, what? Oh my! The Times ran it on the front cover, and people looked at it and just kept going, and they knew at that point, all right, we could just put out whatever about this now. We could just, people could care less. They'll cover it, and they took charge of this. Like, if they really wanted to get to the core of it, once again, and I've told people in the media, I said, just grab a camera, come meet me, and let's sit outside. But if you're here to make a mockery out of this, don't even come near me because one, they're not going to show up. They're not going to show up for your benefit or you to make fun of me. If you have an organic, motive here and it's real, great. I was contacted here by Channel 10 in Australia a couple months ago. They said, hey, we want you to do a C5 for a group. I said, sure, I'd love to. And then thank God they told me, they go, yeah, this is the guy running the group and he's our host, Sam. And I looked into him. He's a professional comedian. I
uh
go, no, no. Thank God they told me who it was. Oh my God, this would
yeah.
have been awful. I said no. Another person involved with it, I said, don't do this. This is a hit piece. They're going to make fun of you. They're going to laugh at you. She went ahead and did it. She was just desperate to get on TV. She did it. And I'll send you the clip. And they did a 4-minute clip from spending a whole night of Skywatch with them.
Right,
And
right.
they edited in that 4-minute clip laughing the whole time. So they made her look like a nut. And thank God I had nothing. I said, I don't want anything to do with that. Leave me alone. Something told me, my intuition, look into this. Like, I've been around long enough to know, hey, let me see what's going on here. And they were like, oh no, we're going to do, and they even lied and said, oh no, no, don't worry. We're going to do the right thing. We're going to handle this with care. We have 2 million followers. I said, I don't care. That's even worse because
Yeah.
if you don't do it right, 2 million people at least are going to see that. And I go, no. And man, this is what's out there. So I would rather not tell my story on mainstream TV and just do what I'm doing the right way than, that's selling your soul. oh, I'll do anything just to get my name out there. I don't care what it looks like. And once they do that, they'll do whatever they want to you. So I've been very patient over the years with how I've told my story. And I have a few other things I'm in development with, but I have the right people around me because once again, I know when you don't, what happens when you get, short-sighted. Oh, just here's a payday. And no, 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 man. Travis Walton, when he did that
Mm-hmm.
movie Fire in the Sky, when they did the raw cut before it came out, he watched it and goes, but that's not what happened. And they go, yeah, but this is Hollywood. People need to see some action. And he goes, but they didn't torture me. Or they go, yeah, but people don't want to see that. And it was too late. He signed his name away and he went into hiding for 20 years. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm going to do with my life. At least I don't want to, on my accord, know that I put my name down. So if anyone's listening and you've seen things, be skeptical who you share your story with. You know what I mean? Because you don't know what their motive is. And if, oh, I work for somebody, I can get your name out there. Man, I've heard so many bad stories. It's always best to do like what you're doing. Just go on YouTube and you could talk. That's the gift of what we have now. We can all go on social media or YouTube and hit record and go, hey, this is what I've experienced. Anyone else out there can identify with this? What a gift. We
Oh
didn't have
yeah.
this 20
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah. Even 10 years ago. And I mean, same with you. Like I knew so many people in this community or the Bigfoot community or the ghost hunting community who jumped at every opportunity to go on TV. And then, they're sitting there with their popcorn and they're going to watch the premiere. And then they're edited to look like idiots, because they take a little snippet of what they said and they twist it and turn it. And it just becomes a horror show because it's like, that's not what I said. And, I've turned down so many things like you did, because it was someone from Sirius XM wanted to interview me for Halloween. And then I'd look into the show and I'm like, this is like a morning zoo show. Like, I'm not doing this because they're going to have the wacky sound effects in the background and they're going to goof on me.
Yeah.
Even if they're not doing a hit piece, again, it turns into this very sort of tongue in cheek, goofing on it sort of thing. And I have a great sense of humor, but I don't want to be the butt of the joke for these types of things. If you really want to know our stories, and that's great, I will tell the story and I can laugh at myself, but don't turn it into like a disrespectful sort of thing where you're twisting it or a hit piece. I mean, that's just awful.
And they did a several part series with that thing, and same thing. It's a joke, and this has happened over and over. My buddy Chris Bledsoe, who's a contactee, Discovery Channel, or someone went to him years ago, and first thing they did, wrote him in a car, took him to a hotel, had him do a polygraph. That's how they opened the episode with him, and they made him look nuts. And same thing, he almost lost his family, and I'm like, oh my God, like you. And he got signed by Jordan Peele, the guy that did Nope.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And for supposedly for 10 years, he battled with George. Supposedly, this is what his kid said on his show. Bledsoe said so. He said for 10 years, they fought back and forth with Jordan Peele about doing a feature film, and they wanted it to be an evil alien ending. And Chris goes, but that's not what that's not what happened. And I can't do that. So they ended up not doing it. But for 10 years of their life, they had to hit pause because they signed a deal. I believe they had like $4 million on the table from one of, I mean, for someone to not say no to that, right? That's a big thing. But once again, are you truly standing behind your story? You'll see when you go through this and you meet somebody and, you're in a desperate time where things are going bad and they say, hey, we could take care of all that for you. Just, I've had people say to me, hey, are you sure you haven't been abducted? I go, no, I haven't. I had not consciously. I haven't done a regression that came up, but no, not at all. They go, well, if you have, we could do that. I said, no, 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 man. I don't want to do that because once again, that's not what I've experienced, and that's changing the narrative, going with this fear thing. Yeah, I could have done that and gotten $2 million, but then again, that's you being a fraud. And if you got to wake up and look at your kids, do you want to be who you really are, or you want to be a sellout? You want to sell your soul. That's selling your soul. There's no devil, but that's how you do it. That money can entice you. You got to be. This comes up when I do readings all the time. This people asking me about selling your soul. That's what that is. Selling out to who you truly are. That's all that
Oh yeah.
means. Stick to what you really believe in. And this is where this is what phenomena has taught me about being who you truly are, standing in that. You know what I mean? No matter what happens.
Yeah. So let's get, because I know people are gonna get on me if I don't ask. Let's talk about the extraterrestrials. What
Yeah.
have they told you? Where are they from? Like, do you have that sort of knowledge, or is
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
not so
So,
sort of
yeah. Yeah.
transactional?
A lot of them are right here. So they're under the ocean. So if you go to Coney Island, they're in the earth. They're right there. So yeah, they've come from distant planets, Zeta Reticuli, Arctur, all that stuff. Yes, absolutely. But most of them, they're here. They're in the earth, and they don't want to be disturbed. Same thing. They don't. from time to time, if you proactively go out there, you'll see, oh my God, there's something coming in. I have seen that. That's why I'm sharing this. But coming from a distant planet all the time now, I think like it's much more localized than that. I know that there's ones walking amongst us. Robert
Hmm.
Bigelow has even said, you don't have to look out. They're right under our noses. And then what he meant was they are literally walking amongst us. There are ETs that are fixed. I've met people that claim to be, this is what like I said, I'm sharing this, and I've seen wild things on the beach in Coney Island. I've seen people come. I saw a guy on New Year's Eve in all black, strip his clothes off, jump into the ocean, and swim away in the direction of a UFO in the sky. It was freezing. It was 0 degrees. At anyone that knows Coney Island, it was on the night of the polar bear race, and I'm
Oh,
like,
okay.
dude, it's zero out. You couldn't, and it was pitch black. It was midnight, and I recorded the thing. I recorded the incident. And after I went upstairs and hit play, there's no one on the camera.
Oh,
And I'm
really?
telling you, I saw this guy from a distance. He saw me. He came walking towards me. I stopped. And then he stopped. And I'm like, I don't think I was just following me, like going to attack me or something. You know what I mean? I'm out at midnight in Coney Island, man, on the beach. You know what I mean? A little crazy, but whatever. I didn't care. But the craft was there and we were both looking at it. So I was like, all right. And then I just backed away watching him. And then he walked to the beach. He stripped naked and then went into the ocean gone. And I ran home. Like I was like, I freaked out. I'm like, I never seen that. I've seen a lot of things in Brooklyn, man, but not that. I was like, what the heck? And yeah, I've seen people on the beach, different weird. Like I saw somebody in the beach on that was blue. I took a picture of them. They're blue in the photo, blue. They were standing there looking at the craft. And then it was weird. A couple nights later, I'm walking in the street in Brighton and I passed by that person and they just kind of looked at me but like, who can you tell? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many crazy things. They're here, they're not going anywhere, and there are people that are coming forward saying the star seeds and that they're alien or part alien, and people are having these out of body experiences or these NDEs where they're waking up to that. I can fully attest to that. Oh yeah, there's tons of there's documentaries about these people.
Hmm. And yeah, I mean, Brooklyn's a weird place, and I mean, I haven't even done shows on it, but I've seen lots of weird stuff in Brooklyn, just stuff I couldn't explain. Someone's walking down the block, and you see them, and they're coming. They don't live on the block, and you look away for a split second, and then you look back, and they're gone, and they're not
Yep.
across the street. They didn't go into it. Like you didn't even look away long enough for them to go up the steps to go into a house or into a car, but they're gone. And I think just especially in the city, maybe in small towns this wouldn't fly, but in the city we just move so quickly, and you're always looking out. Is a bus coming? Is a car coming? Is another person coming? What is this guy doing behind me? Is he going to mug me, or is he, totally cool?
Yeah.
Like we just have so many different stimuli in the city that we have to pay attention to, that it does make you wonder how much we miss. And like you said, if you're not looking up, and I've said this on my show before too, like if you're not looking up, you're not seeing anything. If you don't get out of your house, and I'll go for walks at night, like on really nice nights, beautiful weather, and people have porches and they have the chairs set out and no one's outside. Like everyone's in the head. There's no kids outside anymore. Everyone's inside on their computers or on their tablets or on their phones. And people say, I've never seen a UFO. They don't exist. And it was like, but do you ever get outside? Like if you're in your apartment, you're never going to see UFOs. If you're in your apartment, you're never going to see Bigfoot. You're never going to experience these things. So to just outright say these things don't exist. And I always say on my show, I don't know what these are. I don't know if they're extraterrestrial. I don't know if they're military, but I've seen things in the sky that freaked me out that were not conventional aircraft. I don't know what they were. Um, but I've seen it because I'm out. I go out a lot. I go out a lot at night to just walk. I sit on my porch at night and I just look at the sky. But if you're not out there, so I believe, I kind of tend to believe you that you've seen weird stuff in Coney Island, because Coney is just weird.
You
I
look
used
up
to
the
work down there
history.
a lot. Oh yeah, people need to look into the
Oh
history of
yeah.
Coney Island. My dad is huge into Coney Island and the history of Coney Island. He's got so many collectibles. We used to hang out down there a lot. I used to work down there, and there would be things that you'd see, and I'm tired. It's been a long day. It's dark, and you just kind of, because like I said, you just got to make your train. You got to get on the train. You try not to get mugged. You try not to, get hit by a car. You let these things go, but you will see some weird things down there.
It's a portal. There's a lot of portals all over. So basically, there are portals all over the earth, and you can open them. So doing CE52, you can say you open them. When I was down there, if people listening, I would say Coney Island 1000% is an extraterrestrial portal. If you go down at night, go late at night, just walk down on the boardwalk when no one's around or on the pier. There's a pier there right by the
Hmm.
boardwalk, walk to that pier at the edge. I used to just sit there when no one was around in the middle of winter, like a maniac. In the summer, the cops come by. In the winter, they don't care. At
Right.
least they didn't then. I'd go out there and it was unbelievable all night long, these things coming and people running, walking, don't, in another world, just not even paying attention to what's going on. They could care less. But for me, the big thing with this also is I believe that they're connected to our loved ones. So I think
Hmm.
that after we pass, because I've called out to my grandmother and people that have died after they've passed, and I said, give me a sign. And I've seen flashes, I've had downloads, I've had experiences I feel, and I've met tons of other people that have said to me, yeah, after my grandmother died, this light started coming and it'll come into my room and I feel that it's her. And hey, you can tell your own story, but for me, I know that my grandmother and my loved ones talked about the purple light and all that. That's what that is. That's what that is. So my loved ones, my relatives, when they come through, there's certain lights and certain communication system that I have with them personally. I don't care what anyone says. I know because I've
Hmm.
called out proactively and I've gotten contact for 15 years with this stuff with her. And for me, it's just very soothing. It works. People go to church, they pray for their God, they call up, they never see anything, or maybe once in a blue moon. For me, when I go out, I make contact with my loved ones to whatever I believe in. I get a validation. I see something. I mean, imagine people went to church, called to Christ, and he came. Wow. I mean, that'd be amazing, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
this is, something's coming, it's responding, and it's not telling me to, do something bizarre or to, waste my whole paycheck at that, at to fund that building. It's not saying anything. It's just like observing. It's amazing. So, hey, to each his own, right? That's why I love Coney Island. Everyone's just doing their own thing, trying to get the
Yeah. Yeah.
train.
Yep. And for people who are a little skeptical of the CE5 thing, like I would like to point out, I actually did an episode a couple weeks back about UFOs over Brooklyn, and there was a story, and you hear this a lot, where people who are not trained, you went for training to kind of do the CE5 thing, but you hear stories going back years. And I remember just even reading as a kid, you'd hear stories of people who'd see a UFO and they'd, in their head, they're like, oh my God, what is that? And then whatever they're looking at kind of turns its attention to them and would like move towards them, or it would like, that's when it would zoom away. Like they realize, like in their head, the second they were like, oh wait, that's not a blimp, that's a UFO. And or people would just say like the same thing with the download. They'd say almost like they would get messages from this object that they were seeing. So it's not even like, that you're trained in this and you're just expecting things to happen, because you do hear this in other stories where people are just not into UFOs. They're just out for a walk and they see a light, and as soon as they sort of acknowledge it or they tell their friend, hey, look at that, like then the light kind of sees them and moves towards them, and they're like, oh shit, like this thing
Yeah.
realized we saw
Yeah.
it. Or it zooms off. Like either way, it's sort of like that the object realizes it's been seen and either comes closer or zooms off, or it gives them a message, like there's something beamed into their head. So I always thought that was strange, that you hear these stories going back many, many years.
Oh yeah, it's since the beginning of time people have had these experiences, and a guy did this. Sixto Paz Wells, I believe is his name. Is this guy in Mexico? He's done retreats all over the world. He doesn't call it CE5. There's all sorts of people doing things like this, but basically, people do it in Mount Shasta every year. They go there, they connect with the beings that they say are in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
They say the Lemurians are there. There's all sorts of things. So once again, I can say this, when you meditate, you're strengthening a muscle. There's a brain in the brain. They call it the antenna. Dr. Gary Nolan at Stanford, who studied me, told me this. There's a brain in our brain, the antenna. You get strengthened through meditation, CE5, whatever. But when you strengthen this, you get more of this contact, more of a connection. So you see beyond the veil, whatever you want to call it. Then they're aware of that. Then they come, and then this antenna, you realize, is two ways. It sends and receives. So if people think of it like a muscle, train
Mm-hmm.
that muscle through meditation, and then that's how these things come. Or sometimes people just have something happen that's like out of nowhere, like, why did that happen? But once they start to look into this, it's like an onion. You start to peel back and you find out, oh my God, my mom saw that. Oh my God, my uncle saw that. And you see, it's
Yeah.
not just you. It's this big, that's what happened to me. My mom told me these UFO sightings in the 70s. I'm like, what? Why didn't you tell? I had no idea my whole life. Oh my God, I wish I would have knew. I'm not nuts. Like, oh yeah, don't say anything. People will think you're nuts. I'm like, that's wild. You saw a black disc fly over the house in the daytime? That's unbelievable. With three witnesses, you saw it hovering and then gone. That's unbelievable. 1974, broad
Wow.
daylight. Come on. So once again, you hear it, it peels back, it peels back. So people out there, they ask their family, you'll hear people that talk about stuff they just, they don't want to talk about, they don't want to be a weirdo, but times are changing.
But especially once they know that you're open to it, then people will start sharing. And I found that like once people realize like, oh, you're a paranormal investigator, you're a blogger, you're a YouTuber, like, oh, let me tell you this story, let me tell you that. And all of a sudden, people who you never thought would ever have a story now have 2 or 3 stories of weird things that they've seen or experienced. And it's like, oh, okay. But a lot of us just, you don't want to tell your coworkers, you don't want to tell your friends, you don't want to tell, on your first date, like, oh yeah, I saw a UFO once, because, you never know how people are going to react. But if they're open to it, all of a sudden it's like, oh, let me tell you a story. And then you share your stories and it's great.
I've had more big, brute, tough, rough guys in the fire department grab me on the side after work and go, hey, don't tell anyone this. But I mean, close encounters as kids down in Bay Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I've heard it all. They're like, don't tell anyone.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, it's all good, man. I said, yeah. They're like, I really commend you for coming forward, bro. I've seen it though, man. I know that something's going on with that stuff, man. And it always stuck with me. Once again, you see it, it sticks with you. It's not just a whatever. People will come back later and go, yeah, man, I'll never forget that. Just something,
Mm-hmm.
you have that moment of like, what? Oh my God, that clarity for that minute. And yeah, man, it just keeps sharing, keep talking. People that are out there keep looking into it. And yeah, you're hearing more and more amazing stories that this thing is here and it's here to stay.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, just I had a couple more questions.
Sure.
Um, as far as the extraterrestrials, is it one species or race, or do you know or
Yeah.
believe that it's many different
So
ones?
oh man, I mean, I heard a guy in the U.S. Army for Dr. Greer say they were of 92 different species.
Wow.
I mean, from what I've seen, I can't describe. I don't say like, hey, where are you from? I just know they look different. It's
Mm-hmm.
not always the same, and not all the time would I be like, hey, where are you from? Somehow I don't even care. It's just like I know what I'm saying, right? I know when I see the craft, and then sometimes there'll be mixes of them. So it's not always just all one looking with blonde hair, blue eyes. Just say, it's like the UN. They're
Mm-hmm.
just mixed. It's like the Starship Enterprise, they'll just be mixed. So they're showing me they're living in peace with different races. It's a very important message. And then some almost look like animals, or they would say they look like a giant ant or whatever. Now, it's hard for them to hold the vibration here because of the
Mm-hmm.
toxins in the atmosphere. So when they appear, and if they're in their natural state, sometimes it's quick and they're gone. So people are like, oh my God, I just saw them really fast. Or it looked like a hologram. So they're able, some of them, to project what they look like in a hologram form. So like, oh, it's people like it's not real, it was a hologram. No, they're projecting that because the natural state. It's like us going to Mars. We
Mm-hmm.
can't go to Mars because if we stepped off like this, we die
Right.
instantly.
Right.
So they can't do the same here, but they can project because once again, they're more advanced. They could project what they look like with sending capsules and little things to other planets. They have a more advanced, easy way to do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Than we're sending something that's going to take a million years to get to. They know thought is instant. So, boom, they can project instantly. So, it's just once again, if you could think a little advanced, wow, they have better technology basically, so they could do it safely. And like when
Yeah.
I hear people interacting with these things and dying, maybe accidents have happened, like anything in life, I'm sure, probably. But as far as touching craft or people getting hurt or dying, that's all that military shit. Same thing, because same thing. They're so advanced. If they knew a hazard or something was going to happen, not an accident, but something like touching a craft and people getting arthritis or cancer. I've heard these weird stories.
Oh yeah.
That's that military my lab stuff. That once again, an ET knows you're going to get sick or something. They would take the craft away. I've seen a craft come close. I've walked towards it and it's moved away. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not an idiot. I'm living in Brooklyn. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to keep walking towards it. Duh. Right? Like
Right. Right.
someone's backing away. Don't go after him. Walk away. Use common sense. So you got to use some street smarts, I guess, right?
Yeah.
It helps.
Exactly. And one last question. I mean, we could just
Sure.
go all night here, but I want to keep you. But I'll come on your show at some point. We'll keep talking, and maybe you can come back
Absolutely.
on here. But you mentioned orbs, and I've heard a lot of stories from different people about these little orbs that seem to be intelligently controlled. They're not big craft. They're small. People will see them very up close. They're softball size or basketball size. They'll be peeking in windows of houses, or they'll just shoot back up into the sky like once they're seen. But they're really creepy, and you hear this from a lot of different people. uh And I kind of thought I saw these here on Staten Island. I was out for a walk one night, as I do, and I'm looking at a house, and there was this orange ball looking in a window, and like kind of as I saw it, I went to go tell my wife at the time, and it like zipped off, and it was weird. And I'm like, what the hell was that? So, do you know what those are, or
Yeah. So anyone listening, my friend, when I first learned how to do this, I met a lady. She was in my small contact group in California named Tanaya Tay. She's from Malaysia. She wrote a great book called Benevolent Contacts. And she told me, and I believe this, there's two types of orbs. There's ones with spirits in them, and there's ones that are ET. How do you know the difference? The ET ones usually return to like a mothership or
mm-hmm,
something. They usually like probes, picture probes, right? We have probes. It looks very similar. A ball coming out. And then there's also spirit ones. So the Egyptians, I also studied ancient Egyptian mythology in a school, and I've done a lot of research in this over the years, trust me. And they believe that there's different parts of the soul. And basically, just make it real simple. One of the parts stays here on Earth, and that
mm-hmm,
one you can make contact with. Others go and do what they got to do, but there's seven parts. One of them stays. And basically, that other one is when you get these glimpses and these contacts and these poltergeist type things. So this is just something that they know of and they're around. And yeah, some of them will get attached to a house or an item. So when I do a psychic reading on people, a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, your grandfather's talking about his green and black hat. He wore a beret hat or whatever." Oh my
mm-hmm.
God, yeah, that's his special hat. We never got rid of it. We kept it, inside the house. It's in like a special case. And I'm like, yeah, when you're attached to something, when you transition, if you give someone an item and then you die, hey, take my wedding ring. Hey, take this, that. You have that item. If that person's dead, that's the first entry point back for them. So when you have it, you're like, wow, I feel this connection. I feel close. Yeah, they gave that to you for a reason, probably subconsciously. But when they come back, they're coming through that. That's how this works. So
Wow.
they have that special item or even that house, that location.
Mm-hmm.
They'll come back through, and maybe these weird things happen. But the Buddha talks about attachments and nothing. That's what he was saying. Because if you don't, when you leave, that part of the soul, you may be a pain in the ass for someone, basically.
Right,
You know
right,
what I mean? So the easier said than done. I love my kids to death. How can I not be attached to them? You know what
right.
I mean? But meaning like physical items,
Mm-hmm.
that's what he was saying. Because yeah, you hear these stories of these weird things in houses. Some people, man, they had nothing else in life and they were in that house and in that chair all the time. You do construction in that house is having weird things happen and things falling off the wall.
Exactly.
Yeah, man, you gotta
Yeah.
respect the dead.
All right. All right. Cool answer. So yeah, we'll wrap it up here. I'll let you get going. But where can people find you if they want to contact you or see your videos, or do you have
Yeah,
YouTube
yeah, very easy.
channels?
If
And
you go to Yep. If you go to the psychicfirefighter.com, I'm also a psychic medium. So, along learning this, I also became a psychic medium. I guess you could say I always had this, but basically, I learned how to pay attention to the signs and symbols that are around, formerly with a psychic medium from Long Island named Robert Hansen. He helped to train me. He didn't make me psychic. You're already psychic or not, if you believe it, whatever, but kind of just unfolded. I looked into it, I trained, and I've been doing that for 14 years. If people want a psychic reading, they want to connect with their loved ones, or they want to make sense of this UFO stuff, it's all intertwined anyway. Go to the psychicfirefighter.com, contact me there, and you can go on any social media platform, either at Andrew Radziewicz or the Psychic Firefighter. All my videos, all my stuff is out there. It's all public. Feel free to take a look, leave a comment, and reach out to me if you want.
all right, awesome. And I'll put links to all that stuff in the description so people can find it when they're watching this or listening to it. But yeah, this was awesome, and I would love to talk to you again in more detail about things. I every question I ask, like, and then you're answering it, like three more questions are popping up, and I'm like, I got to keep the show on track. I can't keep going off on too many tangents. But
All
yeah, this
good.
was awesome, man, and I'm glad we finally connected. You reached out to me about 2 months ago when I was like really sick. I had a flu the lingering cough just did not go away. So I'm glad we
Yeah.
finally got to do this because it's been like 2 months
Yeah,
in the making.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right, man. So we'll be in touch. And thank you so much for coming on. These are great stories. And I hope to have you on again.
Anytime.
All right, man. Take care.
Take care.
All right. Bye bye. All right. I want to thank Andrew for coming on the show and sharing his awesome stories about UFOs and UAPs. And what a cool guy, very gracious with his time and just smart and knowledgeable. Very cool stories, really interesting stuff. And, I've kind of stepped away from the UFO stuff for a while now. I've been really focusing on Bigfoot and the paranormal, and I've always loved UFOs, but I've kind of stepped away in the past couple of years in the sense that I just haven't been keeping up with a lot of the the hearings and the disclosure and close encounters of the fifth kind. I mean, these are things I've heard of and I'm vaguely aware of, but I'm really no expert in it. So I do appreciate Andrew for sharing his expertise and his knowledge. And he's got some interesting stories and some interesting insights into UFOs and extraterrestrials and how it connects to spirituality. And want to know what you guys think. So leave some comments down below. Please be respectful. I know we don't always all agree. We don't always all approach things the same way. I'm not a very spiritual person as far as it comes to these things. I don't believe Bigfoot is from another dimension. Uh, you know, Ghosts, I'm not sure what I believe on that, and with UFOs, uh, I tend to believe that they are extraterrestrials. Yes. Do I believe they can communicate with us telepathically? Possibly. Uh, I'm not quite sure what I think on that. So for me, that's kind of a gray area, and I haven't really made up my mind yet. But Andrew really brought up some interesting points, and he's made me think, and hopefully he's made you guys think. And that's all that we're trying to do with these shows. We're not trying to convince anybody or convert anybody. This is just our experiences, our individual experiences that we're sharing. And these are our basic beliefs. And I want to get Josh on the show and talk about that, because that is really the essence of this, is just we can only believe what we've experienced. And Andrew has experienced certain things that I have not experienced, and that doesn't invalidate his experiences or validate mine any more than his, or vice versa, or yours. So just try to keep an open mind, question everything, but keep an open mind. I loved talking about Coney Island. I mean, that's just, it is a weird place. It has a very kind of spooky, creepy, sad history. So Google that, if you will, and just look into that. I've done some shows on Coney Island. I'll try to link to them below, but there's flying humanoids and all sorts of weird stories, the amusement parks burning down and the freak shows of, the early 1900s, and lots of weird stuff. And my buddy John and I, when we were in high school, we were dating these girls who went to a high school right outside of Coney Island. And we'd go after school and wait for them to come out and go out with them and everything. And even John sometimes would just turn to me and be like, even the sun is different down here. Like, just the sun would be setting and the light was just weird. And he'd be like, yeah, it's just weird down here. Even the sun is weird here in Coney Island. And it's just got an energy to it. It's weird. There's some weird people down there. Even the end of the movie Cloverfield, my son Jake's, it's like one of his favorite movies. The end of the movie shows something falling into the water, like off the beach. They're up in the Wonder Wheel and something falls into the water, and that's supposedly where the monster comes from. So were they trying to tell us something? Who knows? But Coney Island is weird, and Andrew has caught some weird stuff on camera. I don't know what it is. The U in UFOs, the U in UAPs, unknown, unidentified. We don't know what they are. Andrew has some insight into that. Do you believe him? Do you not? Let me know in the comments below. Again, be respectful. If you're not going to be respectful, I'm going to delete the comment. So you can disagree, just be respectful about it, because we're all here trying to learn the truth. We all want to question everything, but we want to do it respectfully and not insult anybody, especially my guests. Don't insult my guests. You'll be deleted. Because Andrew is a super nice guy, very smart, very cool, interesting stories, and I would love to have him back on the show again. I believe I'm going to be on his show next Friday, so I will put that on social media as well, just so you can catch me there. But I do want to have him on again. There's so many more questions I have for him, and just things I want to hear from him, because he's just got a really good background and some really good experiences, and I want to hear them. And I just have so many more questions for him. So again, guys, question everything. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. And until next time, everybody, rock and roll. Stay safe out there.